A Mediterranean tragedy which has echoed around the world as the UN chief Ban Ki-moon put it, not since the end of the Second World War have there been so many refugees, displaced people and asylum seekers. That shipwreck off Lampedusa was carrying asylum seekers from Eritrea, from Somalia and from Ghana, most of them desperately fleeing poverty or violence back home. Indeed, across Africa and the Middle East, violence and conflict are constant factors forcing people to seek refuge thousands of miles away. Just in the last 24 hours, 3 people were killed in Somalia when a suicide bomber rammed his vehicle into a UN convoy near Mogadishu's airport. Al-Shabaab militants say they were behind the attack. In neighbouring Kenya yesterday, Al-Shabaab also shot and beheaded 36 non-Muslim workers near Mandera, close to the Somali border. Hundreds of Kenyans are now fleeing the area. Over in Syria, Kurdish and Free Syrian Army fighters try to defend the besieged town of Kobani against Islamic State fighters, which has mostly now been reduced to rubble as thousands flee the town. Well, the UN Special Rapporteur for Migrants' Rights, Francois Crepeau, has launched a fierce attack on the state of Britain's immigration debate, using some distinctly unparliamentary language. And he warned the decision not to support rescue missions for migrants in trouble at sea could have terrible consequences. He joins us now from Rome. And maybe, Francois Crepeau, you could just bring us up to date on what you think is actually happening now that the, as it were, let them drown policy has been inaugurated.
Good evening. At the moment, not much, because this is winter, and in winter, not many people try to cross the Mediterranean. But the numbers will start going up in the spring, and that's when we'll see whether we'll get a lot more deaths at sea or whether the numbers will slow down. We'll see what the results are. My fear is that the number of deaths at sea will grow considerably.
And is the UN formally asking nation states to get on with it and come back to the rescue process?
Well, I'm not representing the UN. I'm an independent expert with a mandate from the Human Rights Council of the UN to examine the issues and report to the Human Rights Council. So I'm not speaking in the name of the UN.
Although I guess I could ask you the same question. Will you be calling on the UN to demand rescue in that area?
I will certainly report to the UN that the fact that states refuse to do search and rescue will be causing deaths, and that there is a need to do search and rescue for these people, as there is a need to do search and rescue for anyone in distress at sea. This is what Coast Guards have been doing for centuries,
right,
and this is what we should always do for anyone.
But then there is another side of the equation, which you have commented on today. I mean, the fact is, Britain, Europe, have the right, surely, as sovereign entities, to determine how many migrants they want in their countries.
This is the sovereign power of states to determine the number of migrants. But it is also a duty of states to uphold human rights. All states have ratified most of the human rights conventions and have those obligations. They have accepted this limitation on their sovereignty. So they have to do both at the same time. Have their sovereignty respected, but also protect the human rights of anyone, including migrants.
Do you think perhaps you overstepped it a bit by saying that the argument entered by the right-wing parties, particularly UKIP in Britain, for example, wanting to limit immigration, you used a word I can't use on television?
Yes, I'm not particularly proud of having used that word. What I meant the same thing, but in proper words. What I meant is that those nationalist populist movements all through Europe, and it's not only in Britain, are basing their rhetoric on fantasies, on threats, on stereotypes that do not correspond to reality. So the stereotype that migrants steal jobs. Social science and economic studies have always showed that except for minor pockets in very specific parts of the labor market, migrants do not steal jobs. Migrants actually bring economic activity that either is neutral at the job level or create jobs.
Francois Crépeau, thank you very much indeed for joining us live from Rome.